Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another RW Tech video. It's been a minute. And really, this channel so far has mainly just been, little YouTube shorts, a couple of videos, nothing really authoritative from a commentary perspective. But this is RW Tech. I used to be part of a channel known as Game Blather. It's currently on hiatus. Who knows, maybe one day that channel will return. But right now, I'm focusing my efforts here at RW Tech. And really, I'm recording this video a few hours out from the PlayStation State of Play. Now, I'm going to try to get this uploaded prior, and I'm going to keep this relatively short. And, I want to talk a little bit in general about the state of the industry. Because really, we got a lot of things going on. Nintendo is winding down its legendary Switch console, right? We are going to obviously continue to see games being announced. Heck, I would definitely expect Nintendo to continue releasing new Switch games even after the launch of their new console at some point, probably next year, right? I bet we'll see at least another year or so of Switch 1 support. Now, obviously, it's probably not going to get the heavy hitters, but, I expect them to kind of put out a handful of first-party games and obviously continue to support the Switch 1 with third-party offerings for the next 2 or 3 years afterwards. And, that's good. But, Nintendo is ready to move on, I think, after this year to their new hardware, but we're definitely going to get some interesting games. I'm hoping that we get Metroid Prime 2 and 3 on Switch. I don't know if they're going to remaster it in the same way that they did with 1. Maybe we'll just get HD ports with updated controls. I would frankly still be happy just with that, but if they go above and beyond and give us like a from the ground up remaster, which they did with Prime 1, that would be fantastic. Xbox is probably in the most precarious place. The one, I would say, saving grace of late is the fact that the new Call of Duty is going to be on Game Pass. Whether or not that game actually turns out to be well received, we'll see. Modern Warfare 3 definitely has its issues, to say the least. Frankly, other than the multiplayer, I think that the rest of the game is a travesty, and I paid $30 for it, and that should have been the price. Modern Warfare 3 should have been a DLC for Modern Warfare 2, based on a lack of content, and also the subpar campaign. Anyways, Xbox, we'll see what they are up to. They have had massive layoffs, but they still have 40 studios. And the question is, what are they going to be doing with their IPs? This has been my question. Why not give some of the other studios work in the Halo series, for instance? Maybe do some spin-offs. Maybe make a Halo RPG. Maybe make a Halo game where you play as Sergeant Johnson. Maybe have id work on a Halo game, right? Maybe put some people together from various studios and have them work on Halo, for instance, while 343 gets their head out of their ass. Same thing with Fallout. Bethesda's sort of in I would say, a pretty bad situation right now, other than the fact that the Fallout show has been immensely popular. Starfield was not well received. I know it's received some updates that have given the game a little bit more notoriety of late, but still, why not give some of these other studios, like Obsidian, for instance, the ones that made New Vegas, one of the best Fallout games, other than the fact that the fan base for that game is absolutely fucking retarded, but why not give Obsidian some Fallout work, You've got all these studios, Microsoft. I don't know why you're not utilizing them. And then you've got Gears, which has, been in decline. 5 was, at best, a subpar game, right? Other than the gameplay, 5 had a pretty lousy story and was definitely the worst Gears game. I'd say it's even worse than Judgment, but, you could still fix the Gears series and put something out that's decent. maybe to reclaim some of its former glory, go back to the more gloomy, dark, you know, situation with the first two games. I like the trilogy, but 2 is definitely, I'd consider to be the best of the 3. But that's Microsoft. Sony, I wouldn't quite say that their situation is as unstable as Microsoft, but they have some issues going on. There's a pretty decent selection of IPs that Sony owns, but it seems like they only give a couple of these IPs any attention, right? I mean, we get a new God of War game, we get a new Spider-Man game, and Horizon. Sony loves to push that series, and I know it's got its, supporters, and I've heard the games are perfectly fine, but, Sony has such a large selection of potential series that they could invest in, and to just see them kind of falter and not really care to give those games any attention. When was the last time we had a new Siphon Filter game? When was the last time we had something like, you have games like Heavenly Sword, right? Sony, I believe, owns the rights to Bloodborne. That's a series that people have wanted on PC for years, and would also probably love a sequel. So with this state of play, I really do hope that they hone in on first-party offerings. And I am not one of these people that dislikes the bringing of previous released games to PC at a later date, but also you need to incentivize your console, right? And it's not to say that the PS5 is a bad value. There's a lot of good games on PlayStation 5. But if we put ourselves in the situation of we're 4 years into this generation, and if we compare the offerings of this generation in general, at least for Xbox and PlayStation, this generation has been some very impressive heavy hitters with a lot of disappointments. And even compared to last generation, I would say we've had a lot less. Other than last year had some pretty good games, but in general, we have not had the amount of games that were exclusive for either of these consoles that warrant a purchase, which I think is why that the sales numbers for both consoles are much lower than where Microsoft and Sony would want the numbers currently. So I think Sony really does need to focus in on the first party support. Bolster the third party games. Give us the games that probably will help drive sales and also hype for your console. I know people have been talking about a rumored PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, I'm not one of these assholes that hates the Pro refreshes. I think they're perfectly fine as long as you continue to support the original hardware for a generation. The PS5 is a fairly capable system still. I think that, you have another issue with developers kind of not utilizing the power that they have with these consoles. But at the same time, one issue that they have is they're using older AMD technology, so the ray tracing capabilities are kind of lackluster. So I'm not completely against a Pro model of the PS5, but at the same time, I really do hope that we get at least 3 or 4 big first-party games coming this fall, right? And things that are varied, right? You want to give us something that, we expect. And I'm not a big fan of where Last of Us is gone, but, obviously, okay, that makes sense, right? But, give us some offerings that kind of give us a different, maybe to get a different audience in on PlayStation. Maybe get some of the people that were big in the PS2 days, when you had a lot of different types of games instead of just these third-person cinematic experiences. And there's nothing wrong with those games, but broaden your horizons. That's my hope. I really hope that they broaden their horizons, and I really hope that they give us something to continue to justify people spending $400 or $500 on their regular console. And if they're planning on doing a Pro model, then they definitely really need to increase the incentive. Now, obviously, if GTA 6 is going to benefit from a Pro level, upgrade, then that's going to be a pretty big deal for Sony. But at the same time, that's not the end-all, be-all. Now, GTA 6 is going to be a phenomenon, right? And I personally think it looks pretty good, based on the one trailer we've seen. But, I think it looks fairly impressive. So that's going to help Sony. But at the end of the day, that can be their only potential saving grace for selling a Pro-level system. So give us some games. Give us some varied games. Don't be afraid to keep something exclusive for a while. Like I said, I don't mind the shift to bringing games to PC, which they also made issues with, like with Helldivers, right? Be clear in your messaging. Don't say that a game doesn't require Sony logins, PlayStation logins, and then months down the line try to force that like they did with Helldivers. Now, thankfully, they listened to the complaints of gamers worldwide and went back on that decision. But that's poor messaging on Sony's behalf, right? That they would have such a... I guess they put themselves in a bad situation, right? They're going to continue to do that if they're not clear in their messaging. The other thing, too, is, Sony has given a lot of its control of PlayStation to these West Coast charlatans. The biggest tragedy for PlayStation fans of old was the shutdown of Japan Studio, right? That made just tremendous, innovative games. And not every game they put out was a 10 out of 10, but they innovated, right? They did a lot for the industry, in a similar way that Media Molecule did. And that's another series that Sony could push out as a new Little Big Planet, or something as a spiritual successor to Dreams, which a lot of people loved on PS4. So the ball is in their court. I do hope that they start realizing that this West Coast, leftist-infused DEI shitstorm that they currently have embraced is not beneficial, and maybe they hit the brakes on that. But, that's maybe asking for too much currently. All I'm hoping for are some good first-party games that, vary maybe the type of gameplay styles, instead of just third-person cinematic action games, because basically everything they release falls into that category. So maybe do some different genres, right? Do some platformers. Maybe do another PlayStation All-Stars. Bring back some of your classic IPs. There's a start. Maybe buy up some new IPs. I'm surprised that Sony... Well, okay, they bought Bungie, but I'm surprised that Sony hasn't bought, Konami, for instance. Or one of these, waning Japanese studios. Konami's the primary example, but, that would be a great investment for Sony. So, we shall see. I might do a reaction, or kind of just a summary of what I think, they did well, or what they didn't do well after the PlayStation State of Play. I would like to get a streaming setup soon, but that's that's something for later on. Anyways, this has been RW Tech. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, comments, let me know. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and stay tuned. Godspeed.